Hello and welcome to Ant and Rabbit. I am Ant. He is Rabbit. We are here to talk about all things fun and pop culture. We got a great show today. A lot of exciting things. I saw my second movie of the last 3-4 years in
Oh,
theaters.
yeah.
I want to talk about what movie that was, how it made me feel, how you felt about it, your review of it. I want to talk a little bit about just some of your garage sale scores and get to some other things. I want to know if you're an NFL draft guy. I want to talk a lot about Nicolas Cage, which
Oh,
you and I will
yeah.
be sharing our top fives. We'll talk a little bit about our Movie Mojo Facebook bracket that you so wonderfully handled and put together. Interested to see what, just what was in your mind and how you decided to bracket things together and
Sure.
ultimately what came out ahead. But I guess a congratulations is in order because Real Reviews is an award-winning show once again.
What, this whole thing?
Uh, you had it so ready to go,
I
and
got
you didn't
another
even know.
I got another one.
That's great. So tell us about it.
Yeah, every year we put my show, Real Reviews, up for the judging with the Midwest Media Festival, which is a lot of fun. And I'm actually one of the judges. I don't get to judge my own stuff, but
Yeah.
and every year we put it up, and we've gotten an award every year. This is our 9th year. But we've always put it in an amateur category. And this year we decided let's go in the professional category, which is much tougher. They're much less lenient on mistakes. And I got the Excellence Award, which is basically, the gold medal, the first place prize, which it blew me away.
That's so cool. That's
Yeah,
so cool. So previously you said it was in like amateur as opposed
yeah.
to. So did you feel like just kind of tougher competition and people who really go all out for their show, or what did you feel like the level difference was, and why did you feel like now is the time to decide to like bump it up to that level? Is it because how long you've been doing it? Because you might be nearing an end with it because you're going to get to that 10-year plateau, or what's like
Yeah,
the thought
yes to
process?
a lot of these things. Yeah, it felt like, well, why not? And yeah, we've never done it. We're getting I kind of have a 10-year mark in mind for the show. And so we're getting to that. And Mara, who produces my show, has been producing it from the beginning, kind of said, give it a shot. What's the worst that could happen? Like, yeah,
Oh
why
yeah.
not? Okay, let's do it. And you're going against shows that actually have budgets, and
Right.
people that are dedicated to that program. Whereas, I'm dedicated to this program, but I'm just one of many shows that Mara and whoever's producing does. And so I thought naturally, like, okay, it's going to be tougher, and but yeah, we got some really nice. You get the judges forms at the end from all the judges and their thoughts, and no doubt a lot of them, all of them, raved about the technical aspects of the show, which is completely Mara. None of
That's
my,
great.
none
That's
of
great.
me, right? And I
Yeah.
know that. I know
And
that.
I had the chance to sit in with Mara and produce one of your
Yeah.
shows maybe a couple times,
Yep.
no more than a few, but and to see all that goes into it, like it's a production. It's a big deal. It's like
Yeah.
kind of one of like the top build things I feel like in a week at the media center where the show is filmed.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts on my show. Just a lot of graphics, a lot of videos, a lot of lower thirds, just a lot of stuff going on. 3 cameras. And yeah, she makes it look easy and makes this ugly mug look all right on the TV. And then I do what I do, but what I do is kind of the same every week, so that doesn't change a whole lot. And then I have rotating guests, but yeah, it was really cool to get that recognition this year.
Um, what I think that's so cool that you guys decided to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just good stuff. Congratulations.
Thanks, bud.
Hell yeah. Well, so your show is Real Reviews. You talk about movies, you go see movies, you review movies,
Yeah.
and I abstained from seeing a Real Reviews review because I wanted to tell you about a movie I saw and then ask you how you felt about it here,
Okay,
and
great.
that way I could get my stuff out there before I knew how you
So
felt
you
because
don't know what I
so
think about
I
this
don't know
movie.
what you think about this movie
Oh, I
yet.
love
And
this.
and I avoided that on purpose because I can be swayed. I can
Sure.
be and I think especially I think it people like to, or if you can find a movie reviewer, like, okay, when I had like a father figure type person
Mhm.
in middle school and high school, and we would get Rolling Stone and look at movie reviews. And this person, his name is Clint. He really liked, I think, Peter Travers of Rolling Stone, and
Okay.
whether you like him or not, I mean, that's whatever.
Mhm.
But he found a writer that he felt similar to,
He
that he's like,
connected
oh
to,
yeah,
yeah.
he connected to that movie reviewer. And
Mhm.
so like if something got a good review that he normally wouldn't see, he would go see that movie.
Sure.
Or if something he really liked but Peter Travers maybe didn't like it, then he was less likely to put money towards that.
Yep.
And so I feel like you are my Peter Travers. and
Okay.
so and so like I have gone to see things. Barbarian is a great example.
Mhm.
Is a movie that I was watching your show because of a different movie that I wanted to see how you felt about, and then I saw your review of Barbarian, and I was like, oh, I absolutely have to check out this movie, and I loved it, and it was so
That's
much fun,
awesome.
and I'm so glad I did.
Yeah.
And so I've had that and other connections with you about what to see and what I can maybe avoid. Um, so the movie is Beau is Afraid, starring Joaquin Phoenix. And just over the last few months, you and I did a top 10 list of our top 10 current favorite actors.
Yeah.
I know Joaquin Phoenix was on my
He
top
was on both
10,
of
and
ours,
I
yeah.
thought that was the case. So he's one of those names that I'll go see whatever he does. And then you add in that this is an A24, so that adds kind of even more lore to them being
Mhm.
one of the top studios, or one of kind of the hot commodities in films today.
Yeah.
Um man, this was something wild. I don't even know where to begin with this movie.
Good
And
luck, man.
it was
I tried getting my synopsis together for my
yeah.
show, and I was like, this is the most difficult time I've had trying to give a synopsis in 4 minutes of a movie.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is paranoia personified or embodied. I didn't it, it was at times I'm like, "Oh, this is gonna be a comedy, or maybe this is gonna be somewhat of a Big Fish
Mhm.
type movie,
Sure.
a Tim Burton Big Fish." I thought it had certain of those elements.
Mhm.
There was times when I literally wanted to walk out of the theater, and my girlfriend as well, and just thought about, or her quote about the movie is, "It was like doing a puzzle I hate." um,
Yep.
and things were like, just awful things continue to happen to this character, and you're not really sure where the story is going. Is there a happy ending? Is and it's absolutely hilarious at a few times, but like also really violent and raunchy at times too, and disturbing and disgusting, and fairy tale at times too. And it's the most bizarre thing. I don't know if I've ever this is where I will give the movie credit, and Ari Aster is the director, is that I like I wanted to leave during the film,
Mhm.
and never did, and still like stuck it out and made it all the way through. And afterwards, I didn't know what to think. 2 days later, I didn't know what to think. It's now almost 2 weeks later. I still don't know what to think, but I am still thinking about it.
Right.
And so, in terms of an impression, I was left with an impression, and I still don't quite know what that was, but I know it still has an effect on me almost
Mhm.
2 weeks later. And it's just the weirdest thing ever. And it's like almost a requiem for a dream type feeling, where you just like, I don't know if I ever need to see it again, or what just happened, or the uncomfortability that I felt, but also maybe it was a genius masterpiece at the same time. I mean,
Yeah.
I
It's like a series of fever dreams happening.
wow, that's a
And
yeah.
and there are many points in the movie where Joaquin's character of Beau wakes up from something that happened to him. And there are several moments where he wakes up and it's basically like a whole different land that he's in. And you and he are trying to figure out at the same time, where am I? When am I? What's going on? And Ari Aster doesn't hold your hand as an audience member through anything. He's like, you figure it out. And that's, I think, the strength of him as a filmmaker. In Hereditary, in Midsommar, they're movies that make you think. They're movies that will disturb you. They're movies that hang with you because he comes up with things, and then he'll randomly just throw an insane visual. Like in this film, at one point, they go into the attic of his childhood home, and you see something that I never would have expected to see in an attic. Uh, and it's not like hung on for too long, and it's never talked about again. And you're left as an audience going, "What? It was what was that?" And this movie is a series of what was that. And I take my notes as I'm watching the movie, and I think I like half filled a notebook during this thing, trying to keep track of what was going on. And
Yeah.
as I was going back through my notes the next day, I noticed that at several points in the movie, I wrote, "What the hell is going on right now?" And at one point I wrote, "I don't know if I hate this movie or love it." And that feeling hung with me like you for days afterwards. And I was trying to sort thoughts out
Yeah.
of like, I don't know. And I listened to a podcast with Ari Aster and Joaquin Phoenix talking about this movie, and they're two confirmed weirdos, right?
Absolutely.
And that might have kind of swayed my opinion, kind of pushed me to a side that I was already leaning. But this is a difficult film. And as I've talked to people about this movie, and in my review, I remember saying, like, you could very much say, I hated this movie. And I cannot argue with you. I will not try to dissuade you. It's a difficult film. I really enjoyed it though at the end of it.
And that's the thing, is that I'm still feeling it. I'm still sorting it out. I didn't know at the time, is like, is this a take on, paranoid schizophrenia, but at the same time, like, Joaquin
Mommy
Phoenix
issues. A lot of mommy issues.
Yeah, oh my god. But Joaquin Phoenix is consistently a really awesome, nice person who you root for, but struggles with these things. But I wouldn't say schizophrenic, but certainly like the paranoia and
he's
how
he's everywhere. Every interaction he has, especially his interactions with women, always end in some sort of violence against him. Bad things happen to him at all points. And just as I felt like, just as things were coming to a boiling point of how much more can this guy take, we stop down. There's a section in the woods that's beautiful, and it kind of tells his story. It turns the movie into a fairy tale, like you said at one point.
Yeah.
And we add in some animation, and that brought me back to center for a minute. And I'm like, okay, I really enjoyed this section of the movie. And of course, then violence has to happen immediately afterwards. But I love it. And Joaquin feels like he's really quiet in this movie. As a character, he seems really quiet and shy and small. But then when you look back on it, it's actually an over-the-top performance in a really quiet way. The things that he's going through and the things that he's doing and his reactions to things, especially like when he gets out into the suburbs with Amy Ryan and Nathan Lane trying to take care of him as these psycho suburbans. And did you recognize there's the guy in that section who's the friend of their son who is suffering from PTSD?
Yeah, so this is who I thought it was, and tell me if I'm wrong. I thought that this was the guy in the French or German Alps at the beginning of Inglorious Bastards.
You're absolutely right.
It was that guy. 'Cause one time they did a close up of his eyes, and I'm like, oh, I know that guy.
Yeah.
But then seeing him later and seeing kind of a full bodied shot of him, he looked so much bigger than I guess what I had imagined.
It's been a while.
Yeah, sure. It's been.
It's funny though, because
Well,
I hadn't seen that guy in anything since Inglorious Bastards. And then 3 weeks ago at the film fest, I saw a film called The Beasts, which he was the star of. It was this French, horribly violent movie. And he was the star of it. And that was kind of the main reason I saw it. Was I'm like, oh, I love that guy in 6 minutes of Inglorious Bastards.
Yes,
I'll go watch this.
Well, it's one of the greatest opening scenes we've ever had.
And then the next week, I go see Beau is Afraid, and he shows up. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah, revival.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. So where? I mean, you seem still unsettled on this movie, huh?
I am, and I think that is kind of maybe the genius of it. And I will like. This is my thing, and this goes back to even how I feel about people. Is like, I would rather hate someone for being themselves than love someone who gives you something that you want to see.
Yeah,
And
totally fake. Yeah.
Exactly. And so obviously this movie has stuck with me, so there's that. But then and maybe I do hate it. I don't know, but it's maybe that's the genius of it. But then also, like, I've more than anything, I've never seen another movie like it.
That's the
and
genius.
and I think that is kind of the part of it where it's just like, that's why I didn't know what to feel at the time. That's why I didn't know about leaving and walking out of the theater,
You
or
don't have a
where am
reference
I in
point.
this? Because yeah, exactly. And there's times where I thought, oh, this is the wrapping things up here, or how much more can Beau go through?
Yeah.
And even just the ending too, and the way it's kind of they almost tell you like it's time to walk out of the theater in a very different way than what we've seen in the ending of other movies, and just the most bizarre thing ever.
Oh, and Patti LuPone shows up as his mom in the final act, and she's tremendous. I loved her showing up there. But that's the beauty of A24 and the beauty of Ari Aster and what they do at A24 is they come up with things that you've never seen before, and they challenge you. And they're not for everyone. Some people hate The Lobster. Some people hate Swiss Army Man. These A24 movies, I love them because there's something I've never seen before. I can't watching hundreds of movies a year. Too many times I can watch a movie and within 10 minutes go, okay, it's going to do this, because I've seen this movie.
Sure.
I know the beats. This movie, I never felt like I knew the beats. I never felt like I was on safe footing of where this movie was going. And so I couldn't be passive in how I was watching it. I had to be engaged because like, I don't know where this is going and I'm caught off guard constantly. That's fun. I enjoy that.
So do you feel like at the end of the year, when you got your list of 200, around 200 plus movies, something like this will stand out to you?
Yeah, this will be at the end of the year. There's a lot of times where when I'm looking at the previous year movies that I've watched and I have them all, these titles, there's a lot of them that are like, I have to go back on IMDb and be like, what was that movie again? I don't even remember it. It was so forgettable. It was a 2.5-star movie. It wasn't terrible. Wasn't great. This is one of those movies, whether I loved it or hated it, it's definitely going to be remembered.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. So yeah, it kind of rises above the rest of the stuff that, I might enjoy more, I might have more fun with, but is ultimately similar fluff as opposed to this is something that's much different than that.
A couple of highlights from the movie, other than Joaquin Phoenix's performance, of course, and just the absurdity of things going on. I think this overtakes Rush Hour as the movie with the best usage of a Mariah Carey song. That was just absolutely incredible, and even just the uncomfortability and of that scene, and just awkward things that are just like that, just cringing, really, time after time. Parker Posey, and
I love seeing her.
Isn't she? Yeah, and we did get to see her. Holy cow!
I've had a crush on Parker Posey since 1994.
Hell yeah, dude! What film was it in '94?
It was it 94? Was Dazed and Confused was the first.
I was gonna say Dazed and Confused for me. Yep, yeah, absolutely,
and then
absolutely. And she's such a great heel. Like she's
Waiting for Guffman. I was like, oh, I got a big crush on her.
Yeah, so that was an incredible scene, and any Parker Posey fan, even today, man, smoking.
Yeah,
that was great. So one of my favorite sports analysts, whatever you want to call her, is Mina Kimes on ESPN. And she's not one of those talking heads who comes up with the most absurd thing to argue and just get ratings and clickbait based on saying the most ridiculous things and having the hottest takes. And she read the IMDb plot line, or the synopsis. I'm sorry, actually on Wikipedia, where they go through quite a bit of what the movie's plot is. And she was like, oh my God, I cannot believe what I just read. And one of the comments to her on Twitter to what she was posting about, just like, I don't know if I can see this movie after what I just read. I really love this comment. I think it really encapsulates like what the movie is. And the movie is very hard to watch. It will absolutely make you uncomfortable, maybe even hate it. You will want to leave, but you can't leave. And when it ends, you will say, thank God that was over. What have I just witnessed? Then as you stand to leave, you realize this is a masterpiece.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, and I when I read that, I was like, oh my God, this person absolutely gets it. And I'm glad to see that what my girlfriend and I took away, that you also it's not like there was a very easy, deeper meaning to kind of conjure up and grab and take away from this, that it is just an absolutely out there film. And I guess people need to, even with our words, like we have not given away very much of
Nothing.
anything, and people should still go watch this if they're up for the experience. And that's the thing. I've never had that experience going to see a movie.
Yeah.
Never
That's
had it
awesome.
before.
It's
Yeah.
long. You're going to sit there for a while.
Absolutely.
You know, it's what, almost 3 hours long?
Yeah. Yep. That was a long one. Yeah. We went to like a 8 o'clock show and we didn't get out till after 11:15. Yeah. So
Go check it out though. I recommend it. Challenge yourself. Don't just wait for the next Transformers movies to come out or Fast X. Go challenge yourself with something different.
That's funny. As we segue into some Nicolas Cage, watching some of his movies back for, you know, the bracket and getting our top 5 list together, I was looking at some of his mid 90s movies and watching him like this, even though I've never seen any of the Fast and the Furious movies, I couldn't help but think that this was a clear precursor to a lot of the chaos that, you know, we see in those
very
previews.
Surprised he hasn't shown up as a villain in one of the Fast movies.
And if it seems like it's bound to happen at some point.
Yeah.
Now that he's willing to go maybe more mainstream again. It sounds like, based on a quote I read from him from 2022, that I think he's paid off some debts and is willing to is not just accepting everything now, which I didn't really know was a big part of his arc, I guess, of the last 10 years.
I mean, the last 10 years, he was making and averaging 6 movies a year. That's every 2 months you're making a motion picture. I mean, that's absurd to do year after year after year. You know, I was looking back through his career because watching some of these movies, and I talked about one of his films that on Real Reviews this week, and looked back and I was like, "Whoa!" He was making, in the 90s, he was making 1 or 2 movies a year, and they were high quality, and he had a run of really great films there.
Yep.
And then at one point it went off the rails, and his career went off the rails, and he was just like, and then the jokes, the Andy Samberg impression of him on Saturday Night Live of like, you know, is it a script? I'll make it. I'll do it. You know, like it does. I'm not discerning in any way. All that started, but in between there, even though he's made a lot of terrible movies in the last 15 years, every once in a while, there's a real gem in there where he really gets the hold of something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think 2 of those movies I've got on my top 5.
Nice.
So kind of what brought this about with the bracket, and so over the last year or so, you've been doing these movie brackets, whether it be a type of movie, Christmas movies, or whatever it be, or it might be just from a certain actor, Tom Hanks.
Yep, we've done filmmakers, we've done Spielberg bracket. Yeah, just kind of fun. Sometimes try and tie it into something that's coming out or a season, or we've done sports brackets and all that. Just something fun to keep the Movie Mojo Maniacs group going, keep people engaged, and you know, I like to get people's opinions, and then I like to get angry at people's opinions. You know?
Exactly, and that's how you just keep all the fun going with that. What, after a handful of brackets, like what made you decide to do Nicolas Cage, and you just felt like this is someone who has enough of a library basically to go from, but then also is somewhat of a, you know, he's someone we talk about right now just because he is kind of on this big upswing and kind of a return or a revival in a lot of ways, especially the last few years.
It's that he has a deep library, because I like to do minimum of 32 movies, you know, for a March Madness style bracket, sometimes even more. Sometimes I'll make it a big bracket, but minimum of 32 that don't have a bunch of clunkers and filler in there. You know, I mean, he's got like 100 acting credits, but a lot of them are just terrible. No one's even seen them. And then, you know, I just watched Renfield a few weeks ago. He was one of the stars of that as Dracula. Really enjoyed him in that. And it was a discussion with another friend of mine. We were talking about Nicolas Cage a month or so ago. And yeah, it just was like, you know what, that'd be a fun one. I think most people have seen a lot of his big ones, especially those 90s ones. I think a lot of people have opinions of him. And he's had a long, you know, his career started in the early mid 80s and is still going. So he's got a diverse career. So I thought that would be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So to put 32 movies together for a bracket, was there anything that you left off that you were like, oh man, or is at 32 a pretty easy
Well,
to
this year,
include?
yeah, this year I couldn't pare it down. I was down to like 35, I think it was. Is that right? Yeah, I was down to like 35, 36 movies. Couldn't knock it down. And you get to an odd number, like you have to get to a certain number to make a bracket work, right? And so I had for the first time, I tried the play-in game, like the NCAA does,
Yeah.
where I put 4 similarly like on the bubble movies.
Yep.
I like pick one, and that one makes it in. And what disappointed me the most was one of the movies that I absolutely love that's on my list here got eliminated in the bubble play-in game.
Oh no.
And I was like, okay, you people, this is how we're starting.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. It's open to the vote, and we have a big group of people, and a lot of them that like to vote on every one of them. So it's up to the masses. The majority decides. At some point, I just put my hands up and be like, all right, this is what you guys chose. I wholeheartedly disagree on this.
Yeah.
Here we go. So.
Do you want to tell us what the winner of the bracket was?
Yeah, the winner of the bracket, it came down to, at the end, it came down to The Rock versus Con Air.
Yep.
Is the top two movies that came out pretty much back to back for him.
Yep.
And The Rock won, which surprised me because in my mind, I've always considered The Rock to be a Sean Connery movie.
Yeah.
That Nic Cage plays a great supporting role in, but it's always in my mind been a Sean Connery film.
Yeah.
And so that surprised me that was the one that won. But it's a great movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, should we get into it a little bit here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I'm gonna give you my top 5 first, and you can pick me apart.
Okay.
If you want.
Okay.
Okay. So I don't really have them ranked, but I do have one that is my clear-cut favorite, and just saw it when it came out, and can watch it every few years, or can go 10 years, or like, it's just a fun, entertaining movie. You can watch it alone. You could watch it with a group of people.
Okay.
It is Face Off. And I just love this movie. This one's my favorite of his by far. He plays the villain and he plays the good guy. It's like a dueling John Travolta and Nic Cage at really the heights of where they were at the time, mid to late 90s. And Nicolas Cage plays the villain, but then you have the face-off transformation where now John Travolta's character
rewatched this week,
and it's completely ridiculous.
It's both of them off the rails too. I feel like this is where Nic Cage started to really embrace the like wild
chaos.
Guy.
Yes,
it's like, I'm bringing this guy, and Travolta was leaning into that too. And yeah, I mean, this was a huge movie when it came out. Stuff.
Oh my gosh, incredible blockbuster. And I'm proud. I'm 7, 8 years old, and I love this. I love Castor Troy, and oh my god, so much fun. And then just the absurdity of the explosions, where there's literally just fireworks going off at times of the movie. It's not even like they tried to make it look like explosions or anything different. There's sparks flying out of places that don't even make sense, and just completely over the top.
Would have sparks coming out of it.
Yeah, like none of it makes any sense whatsoever. But it is so fun and so entertaining. It's such a great popcorn flick. It's and a number of Nicolas Cage movies, I think you could consider this, but this is, as far as like, I think it's the best or one of the best bad action movies where the plot or something is just so ridiculous, but the movie is so much fun that you overlook silly things, or and just even at times where they have the surgery to get each other's bodies and faces changed over, and you can hear John Travolta's voice coming out of Nic Cage's body because he is actually the good guy at the time, and how they play each other's characters. And there's that scene with a mirror where they're pointing guns at the mirror, but they're both on the other side of the mirror, and it's just a fun, great scene. I'm pretty sure they included that one in the previews at the time. Of course. Face Off. I can't speak highly enough of Face Off.
A lot of fun.
All right, a couple years ago, moving on to the next one on my list. I'm not going to number it because Face Off is whatever. But a friend I was working with gave me a DVD. He's like, don't look at anything. It's a Nic Cage movie. It's recent, and I just want you to watch it. And I and I put it on, and it's this movie called Mandy, which is a psychedelic romance horror something or
Yeah.
rather / revenge film.
Yeah, gotta kill a cult.
Oh my
Take out a
god.
cult.
Yeah, this was I've once again never seen anything like it, and very special movie. Not something I would have considered Nic Cage being a part of, but this one is just a wild. I don't even know, love
That dude
story
is
of
covered
sorts.
in blood at the end of that movie.
Yeah, and it just some incredible scenes where he like wakes up in the bathroom where there's just blood everywhere and just starts screaming, and I don't even know what to say. This is just one of those weird ones, but
Yeah. Love it.
absolutely love Mandy. In preparing for this show, I wanted to make sure I saw the movie Pig. It takes place in Oregon. It's shot in Portland. I think they had it here in select theaters or at like special theaters instead of just the big ones. That was great. Really not necessarily a Nic Cage character once again that you would consider just kind of a more, I don't know, how would you describe his character compared to normal? Like he's not that wild out there. He's more of the reserved. He's I guess
It's a
former
quiet
chef.
performance.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just a guy who wants to be left alone.
Yeah.
Somebody
And
steals his truffle pig and
yep.
damn it, I gotta get that pig back.
Which is great because I don't know, all the mushroom hunting and everything that's out here. And what I liked about, knowing the landscape and everything here and where he kind of lives somewhat on the lam and then comes back to the city where he's this former like 5-star chef and we don't really know too much about it, but
there's
he knows
this weird underground fight club that he has a history with.
Yeah. I forgot about that. But I love how it goes into certain things that I know about just from here, just like how up its own ass the foodie culture and restaurant thing is here, and just the way that works in certain big cities, and to see that kind of being poked fun at, or how that was referenced, I thought was a lot of fun. But
Yeah.
Some people would say it's John Wick with a pig. I don't know if I'd quite go. I don't think it was that actiony, but I really loved this film Pig, and that's one I would tell people to check out, especially if you haven't seen movies from the more recent Nic Cage and some of the lesser known films he was doing. Pig and Mandy both, would definitely do it. Gone in 60 Seconds is one that I haven't seen in years, but it used to be on TNT, TBS all the time. But that's one I think is just a lot of fun. That's another good popcorn flick, which I think Nicolas Cage is really good at. And it's kind of at the tail end of that really good run of 95 to 2000, where he's just doing all these really good actiony fun popcorn movies. And Angelina Jolie with the blonde dreads, a really good cast. I think it's just a really fun movie. I love looking at all the cars that they're trying to steal, and he's a retired car thief but has to he's got to go back in it for one more to save his brother. One more job to save his brother. Love Gone in 60 Seconds. And then this last one was tough because it's funny, for my fifth spot, it's what you referenced. It's Con Air versus The Rock.
Nice.
I just saw Con Air last night for the first time, rented it on YouTube. And it's one of those movies that just escaped me somehow for so long. And you look at the cast and I can't believe it because it's all these guys really at their peak of Buscemi's in there. Dave Chappelle is in there. I mean,
full-on weirdos.
Rams, just watching the credits at the beginning, I'm like, oh my God, they just keep coming.
You get Malkovich in there. I mean, come on,
incredible. Oh my God, Cusack at around his also like in that era of his great run of like 95 to 2000. Ultimately, because I have the nostalgia factor, I think I'm gonna go with The Rock because I saw it when it came out. I think I saw it in theaters. My mom
it's a great movie.
Yeah, it is. And I grew up, like, my mom was a huge James Bond fan, a huge Sean Connery fan. And so anything with Sean Connery, even into the 90s, my mom would check it out.
Connery was great in the 90s. I mean,
absolutely.
He had a great run of movies, kind of the tail end of his big budget. I can still be kind of a leading man part of his career.
Yeah. And so what was the deal with The Rock? The idea was, he's a prisoner on Alcatraz, but there was also references to like maybe this character was James Bond, or like that was I know, like, I don't know, there was hints at that at times, it feels like, and I know he
I
has
think they
he
really
has a
like to
different
play around
name,
with that.
but
Yeah.
they were a little bit loose with it at times, where it's just like, oh, maybe this is an
Yeah, real
aged James
tongue in
Bond kind of
cheek.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, he doesn't go by the name or anything like that, and it is a separate thing, but it does feel like that was part of maybe the lore to that character. But
Yeah.
I ultimately I just don't have the back history of Con Air, and I had a great time watching. It was so much fun. Was smiling throughout, and now I'm even at this moment, I'm like, I
Sure.
don't know. So maybe it's a loose tie. I'm not sure, but that's
fair.
kind of that's my top set, my top
I like it.
six.
Yeah, I rewatched a ton of Nicolas Cage movies over the last week and a half. I think I watched 8 Cage movies. My wife is like,
Wow.
"What are you doing? Why every time I walk in here, you're watching another Nicolas Cage movie?" I'm like, "I got stuff to watch, and some of these I haven't seen in 30 years, you know." And recently, like maybe a month or two ago, I rewatched Moonstruck because I hadn't seen that in forever, and I just happened to rewatch that. And then, so I've been inundated with a lot of Cage lately,
Hell yeah.
which is good and bad. But I had a hard time deciding. So I discovered, though, as I was putting my list together, that I really love him when he is playing more of the subdued, really almost depressing performances. That I
Sure.
really like regular guy Nic Cage, as opposed to, I love National Treasure. I rewatched that, like all these, but
I
I
watched that for the
love,
first time as well in
yeah,
preparation.
but I really enjoy regular guy, and I enjoy kind of more depressing fare, anyways.
Can
It's just
I
me.
I kind of want to guess your top 5.
Okay.
All right. All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Leaving Las Vegas.
Okay.
Is you okay, you'll
That's number 3.
okay, Leaving Las Vegas is on there. Raising Arizona.
Of course.
Okay. And that was a tough one for me because I remember seeing it years ago, but it was like probably on TV and not the
Raising
full.
Arizona is my number 1 Nicolas Cage movie. It's where I discovered him. I mean, I'd
Yeah.
seen him in Valley Girl, but didn't know who he was. And at the time, I believe he was Nicholas Coppola.
Yes.
Didn't make the connection. Raising Arizona, first thing I'd ever seen from the Coen brothers. Again, one of those things of like, I've never seen a movie like this before. I don't understand it. This is super weird. That bad guy's really awesome, but
Yeah.
I watched that movie a lot. I remember one summer it was on like Comedy Central, like
That's
repeatedly.
yep, exactly.
And I watched it so many times, and I'd pick up wherever it was at. I'd start watching it, and yeah, I love Raising Arizona. And that broke my heart when we were doing the bracket that it got bounced in the second round. I'm like,
Yeah.
you savages, you
Yeah.
don't have a heart.
And that's why you do it.
Yeah.
I do want to guess Valley Girl.
Nope.
Okay, Valley Girl did not make it.
Not for me.
All right, so I've gotten. All right, so I got 2, and I got 1 wrong. I'm gonna guess that Adaptation.
Adaptation. I had a few movies that I needed to rewatch because I just hadn't seen them in forever.
Yeah.
Adaptation was one of them, and I wasn't able to get to rewatch it. I know it's a great movie, but I can't put it on my list if I can't talk about it, and I don't have strong memories about the movie. So it might be if I rewatched it.
I'm gonna say that Con Air is on your 5.
It is not, sir.
Oh, okay.
You went 2 for 5.
Damn. Okay. All right. Well, there we go.
I'll tell you. So, my number 5, Con Air, was like honorable mention territory for me.
Sure.
And
yeah.
I put it as my favorite of his action movies.
Yeah.
That was
fair
my
enough.
That was my favorite of those action movies. But my number 5 is a film that I loved when it came out. I've never felt like it got any publicity. I rewatched it again this week and loved it again. It's Matchstick Men.
That was yep.
Yeah, he and Sam Rockwell as a couple of con men, a team. Nic Cage has severe anxiety, OCD issues. Yep. They're trying to pull this con on this wealthy guy, and suddenly Nic Cage's long estranged daughter shows up and flips his life upside down and changes the dynamic between he and his partner, Sam Rockwell. And she wants to get in to teach me how to be a con man too. It's a great movie, and it's a great performance by him because he's got a lot going on. He's juggling the mental issues that he has that border on going over the top in his performance, and then juggling being this con man and then this daughter and this guilt and trying to reunite and suddenly being proud to be a father. It's a great performance. I love the movie quite a bit. Yeah.
That's awesome. This is one that I remember renting when it came out, but same thing. Haven't seen it since it came out.
Yeah.
I remember liking it at the time, but it wasn't one I was able to go back and rewatch. And it's but that you made me want to rewatch it.
Ooh, you make me want to be better. My number 4 is a movie I rewatched last night, and it's not that old. It's only from a few years ago, but it's another great regular guy performance. It's a film called Joe. And this was the movie that was on the bubble bracket that got eliminated by The Croods.
Yes.
And
The Croods.
God dang it, guys. But Joe, he plays this guy who runs a crew. He's a former convict who runs a crew of guys that go out and basically poison trees to be cleared for farmers. He hires up this young kid who his 15-year-old kid who works hard, and his dad who's a alcoholic, abusive jerk. And he kind of Joe takes protection of this kid against his dad. There's a whole bunch of stuff. His past comes back to haunt him. There's a lot of violence involved. And it's really good. And it's a quiet, strong performance from him. Interesting enough, the filmmaker, the guy who plays the kid's dad, who is kind of the antagonist of the movie, it's the only role I looked him up. I'm like, God, this guy looks kind of familiar. Have I seen him anything? No, because he was just a homeless guy that the filmmaker hired to play a drunk homeless guy, basically. And then he died shortly thereafter. It was kind of sad, but like, well, wow. Interesting technique. But it's a great movie. I believe it's over on Netflix. I think it was a Netflix movie.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I like it a lot. It's a really, really good Cage performance. So that's number 4. My number 3, Leaving Las Vegas. Rewatched that again this week. It's his only Academy Award win for Best Actor. Really, he and Elizabeth Shue, their chemistry. He is the alcoholic who moves to Vegas to drink himself to death. Hires Elizabeth Shue's character of Sarah with an E she's an escort, but he doesn't want sex. He just wants someone to talk to. And they form a pact where you don't ask me to stop drinking. I won't ask you to stop turning tricks. They fall in love as these two really broken people find something in each other and want to fix each other more than themselves. And it is a brutal performance, man. And it's so emotional. And both of them, I thought she should have won that year, but she lost to Susan Sarandon for Dead Man Walking. But she was amazing. And it's a movie that kind of tied me up in knots, and I absolutely loved it. And looking at his career, this is the movie that launched him into that superstardom that we talk about. This movie comes out, he wins Best Actor, and right after that, he's making all of these big action flicks that
this is where he goes on the run, of like 5 years, where you get Con Air, you get Face Off, you get The Rock, you get Gone in 60 Seconds, you get 8mm, I think was in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, this gave him the pastiche to do what he wants. He does this the next year: The Rock, Con Air, Face Off, City of Angels, Snake Eyes, 8mm.
Snake Eyes, yeah.
Gone in 60 Seconds. Like, these are big budget movies with big directors. Yeah, I love it. I love the depressing factor of this movie. And then my number 2, I have a tie because I love cheating. And they're 2 movies that you mentioned, and they tie together in my mind. Mandy and Pig, both
nice. Hell yeah,
guys in the Northwest, loners up in the Pacific Northwest, who go on a rampage because somebody did something to someone they love, and they're different in how they're shot, and they're different in how they edited, and they're different in how he's portrayed. But both of them are just quiet guys who just want to have their life, and a part of the world that they don't want in their life interrupts that, and they have to go out and seek revenge, and it gets brutal and it gets really rough. But they're both great performances from Nic Cage. That Pig got a lot of publicity because I think, when that came out in 21, a lot of people were like, wow, Nicolas Cage, look at him. Mandy is a movie that I don't feel like people talked about.
No,
because
and that's
I think he burned a lot of people from years and years of direct to red box movies. That it takes it takes a couple of good ones for people to finally go, all right, I'll give it a watch. And then I think that paid off last year with the Weight of Unbearable Talent, where he kind of plays of himself, and people are like, "Oh man, Nicolas Cage is great," you know. It's like, yeah, he's in on the joke.
Yeah, I like that you chose those two. I wish I would have put them together. Gosh, you're
It's a great way to cheat.
So savvy. Yeah. Well, it's also from that era that you're talking about where he was doing these lower budget, lesser known films. It wasn't the big theatrical release type stuff. And like I said, a friend, that I worked with handed me Mandy and was just like, don't even look at it, just watch it.
Yeah. That's a great way to get a movie too. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. And one, like you said, nobody had heard of it. Nobody knows. And still to this day, people don't really know Mandy, and you're in for something wild when you do watch it. But I like putting those together and the PNW connection.
Yeah. And then number one, Raising Arizona. There was a few movies though that I really wanted to watch that hold high esteem, but are deep in the recesses of my memory. I didn't get a chance to watch Bringing Out the Dead, his one Scorsese movie that he did. I remember watching it on video when it first came out. And Wild at Heart, a movie that I used to watch a lot when I was young. Haven't seen it forever. And Adaptation. Those are kind of the movies that I didn't get a chance to rewatch. But I guess when I look at my list, I realized, I like his more quiet, brooding versions as opposed to the over-the-top action movies that he's known for.
Very interesting. Yeah, very interesting. And looking at this too, I'm like, man, and just listening to you talk about it and looking at his list of movies, like there's a lot of stuff that I realized that I don't know, stuff I need to see or wanted to see or forgot how good this was. And it's he really does have, like, I don't know, he's got a pretty damn good collection.
He made a movie a couple years ago called Willy's Wonderland that is insane. I watched it and reviewed it, but he plays a guy who breaks down in this small town, doesn't have the money to fix his car. So this guy hires him to go work at his, like, Chuck E. Cheese, basically. Work tonight, cleaning up the place, blah, 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 mopping up, blah, blah, blah. I'll give you enough money for you to get the part for your car. Great. And so he's there overnight, locked in. He's got to clean the toilets, do all this stuff. And as he's doing it, the animatronic animals come to life and are trying to kill him. And it is fights to the death with this, animatronic mouse. And it's brutal, this robot mouse. And it's just brutal stuff. And he kills it. Then he has to go back to scrubbing the toilet. And then a few minutes later, a different one comes after him. And it's this repetition. And what's most interesting, at the end of the movie, I realized, I don't think he said any dialogue the whole movie. And I looked it up, and sure enough, 0 lines of dialogue in the movie. Didn't say a word. And I was like, is this Nic Cage being like, this is when this is probably the 8th movie of the year he made. He's like, I'll make it, but just, I don't have to memorize any dialogue. My guy wouldn't say a word. Like, sure, just fight the animatronic animals.
What the hell?
It's insane. But I actually really enjoyed it.
I once again, now I want to go check it out. And it's funny because when we were talking about doing our top 5 lists for the show, I remember you saying, well, how many times can I put Willy's Wonderland on there?
Yeah. I don't know if I'm the only person that's seen it, because I don't know anyone else that has, but it's fun. It's dumb.
Have you looked at Nic Cage's own top 5 for Nic Cage?
I did. So my buddy Danny Daly in our group posted that Nic Cage had his own list, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. It's really informative. I hadn't seen that beforehand. It's nice. Actors don't do that very often.
Yeah, I love that he did that, and he seemed pretty confident. And it's, you and I both have. So I have 2 of the movies. Mm-hmm. You have 3 of the movies on your list.
I was surprised to see that he did not have his one Oscar-winning performance listed in there.
Yeah, and I wonder how he views that. Like, yes, I'm glad I got it, but I've done great performances in other things, or maybe he doesn't like the path that set him on in some ways, or why he would leave that out, or just to kind of stick his nose in the air at the Academy, or how.
I don't think it's that, because I think he was really, there was a lot of Oscar buzz around Pig a couple years ago, and I think that he was in on that. But he's an interesting guy. I mean, because he's a guy who kind of turned away from fame early in his career. He comes in as Nicholas Coppola, huge name,
huge
and
name,
he decides,
he
says, I don't want to get my fame off of that name, and changes his name.
That? Yeah, because everyone else still keeps Coppola, and I didn't even know he's right. Yeah, and he's got his brother's a New York City DJ. I mean,
Yeah.
it's more than just like filmmaking. I didn't know they were cousins with Jason Schwartzman as
Yep.
well. I
Yeah.
had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I think he's an interesting cat in the way he approaches things, and I don't think you can ever pigeonhole him and how he sees his career, and
Yeah.
it makes him interesting even when some of his choices are questionable.
Yeah, in the 5 movies he chooses, all 5 are after leaving Las Vegas. All
Hmm.
5 are after, the winning the Oscar, and all 5 are really not ones like in most people's top 5 or his highest grossing or whatever or most popular. You wouldn't find this 5.
Yeah, what do you
You
have?
just wouldn't. I love that number 1 far and away. He says Pig
Yeah,
is my favorite film I've ever made.
sure.
And that was very easy. Like he answered that one immediately. Then he went to Mandy. So that's
Nice.
I have Pig and Mandy. You have Pig and Mandy tied
Yep.
at one spot because you're a cheater, a dirty cheater, dirty, rotten cheater.
Uh-huh.
Bringing Out the Dead,
Yeah, I need to
which
rewatch
is
that.
which is the one. So that's from 1999. You said that's the Scorsese,
Yeah.
and that one by far
It's him and
is the
John
oldest of the
Goodman?
5. Oh
Yeah, I think it's
wow.
Cage and Goodman as ambulance drivers, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call in New Orleans.
I have never
Never,
seen
me
that movie.
neither. Me neither. How
Yeah.
do you feel about before? Okay, so then the last one is Joe. So
Yeah. Great. Oh, yeah. That's right.
yeah. So I mean, that's really you guys. You have a similar list to what he thinks is his
Sure.
best. So I think in some ways you talked about you like a certain Nic Cage,
Mhm.
kind of the understated regular guy, not the over the top action
Yeah.
star. And it feels like he does too. Like he agrees with you.
Sure. Yeah. Good job, Nick.
How do you feel about his southern accent?
Oof.
Because I honestly, maybe one of the things that stopped me from putting Con Air over
It's
The
rough.
Rock.
It's rough.
I'm like, why did they do that to him? Because it's funny to me, he's supposed to be from Alabama in Con Air, and I
Yeah.
know it's all whatever, it's the South, but I definitely heard more of a Cajun style accent at times from him,
It's
or
like
just struggling.
It's like Vanderbeek's southern accent.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
don't
quite
want
there.
your
I
life.
don't want your life. Yeah, it's a little out there.
Okay, what makes him great? What makes him captivating? Why is he as important as he is? Why do we love his films? Why is he a cult hero in some ways? And he's certainly seeing this revival this last handful of years. And we haven't even mentioned the movie he did with Pedro Pascal, which is
Yeah.
probably the
Unbearable
one
Weight.
Unbearable Weight, which is probably the one that brought him back more so than anything else. And a lot of that I think is Nic Cage playing himself as well as Pedro being as hot as he is right now.
Yeah, and Nick Cage being in on the joke, making fun of himself about how he's
Okay.
desperate for money. You know, he'll do anything if the price is right. Like, look, I'm in on the joke, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he became a cult hero around the time he got big in the '90s because he's making these movies. He's over the top. Face Off was one of the things that really did it. That it just his over the top performances matched with he's marrying Lisa Marie Presley. He's buying Action Comics #1. He's like
that's surprisingly a big part of his story.
yeah,
In
he's a
some
huge
ways.
comic book collector, and
Yeah.
he set the market for comic books as a buyer at that time. And it was like, whoa, Nicolas Cage is one of the biggest collectors there are. He's got money to burn. Now he's married to Elvis's daughter, and it very much felt like he just wanted to marry Elvis's daughter.
Yeah.
He's
100 days, I think,
he's
was the
played
length of that
Elvis.
marriage.
He's played an Elvis impersonator in movies. He's done a lot of Vegas related movies. I mean, he's done like 3 Vegas movies.
Yeah, and it's funny. That's the first movie I ever saw Nicolas Cage in, and I remember you back in the day, you talking about leaving Las Vegas on Pop Culture Time Capsule with Jeff Robbins. And in my head, I'm thinking Honeymoon in Vegas because I didn't really know.
Movies.
Very, very different movies. Because I remember that's the first time I remember Nicolas Cage just as a kid when that came out. That was 92 to 94.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember just watching that movie with my mom and having the tape and jumping out of the plane in Las Vegas as the Elvis impersonator.
You're like, I don't remember him being an alcoholic with a hooker.
Yeah, I'm like, what? I was like, really? He won an Oscar for that?
Nice. Yeah, I think all of that kind of bled in. His outsized personality on screen and off screen kind of made him that cult figure.
Yeah. And just reading up on some of this stuff, I like that you watched 8 movies. I watched 5 Nic
Yeah.
Cage movies, some new ones. I hadn't seen National Treasure before or Con Air.
Hmm.
Mixed in some new with some old. I hadn't seen Pig. I rewatched Face Off.
Yeah.
Just trying to get in as many as I can. And I'm like, man, he's got a deeper bag than I had considered.
Sure.
You bring up the comic books thing is interesting to me as a fun piece to his story, because in some ways he set the market for what comics were worth or became, because he got the first ever, it was Batman or Superman's first ever appearance in
Superman. It was Action Comics
Comics
number
one.
Yep, Superman.
So he buys that for like 100 to 200 grand
because he was supposed to be Superman.
Yeah, and isn't there like a lot of it filmed with him?
Yeah.
And was this related to the same Superman that Kevin Smith was originally a part of, but then dropped from? Or do you know a little bit of that story?
Oh, there's a great documentary about it. The death of Superman Lives or something like that it's called. That talks all about it and shows the screen tests of him in the suit and talks to everybody behind the scenes of that. Oh yeah, because Kevin wrote on it, and it's a bonkers documentary.
Yeah, The Death of Superman Lives.
Yeah. That's definitely one to watch. Yep.
Okay, all right. Well, I definitely have to check that one, because I've seen some of the photos of him as Superman before, but obviously we never got that released.
That long hair, like, oh, it was horrible.
So bizarre.
Yeah.
The long hair, and buying that original comic book with the original Superman in there, it gained like 10 plus times its value, and eventually it was stolen and then found in an abandoned locker years later.
It's like a movie on its own.
It really is. I'm surprised it isn't. And someday when we get the Nic Cage biopic, this will be a part of it.
Yeah.
So he gets this crazy, insane, like the most famous comic book ever, basically. It's stolen from him, found years later in some sort of locked locker or vault, and is then confirmed to have been the one that he purchased earlier. He had insurance on it. He gets it back. The value of it just continues to go up, probably because that was also Nic Cage's, lost, regained, just adding to the whole story of it all.
It's got a story to it, yeah.
And then maybe using that to, in some of his, where he's the issues of I don't know, just buying too much property and issues with that, and agents and managers, and needing to move things around or sell this or that to take care of a lot of his financial
bad
issues.
investments.
Some bad investments, a lot of interesting movie choices. All these things just are just I guess make it a great history of his. But I still want to see that anything I can from that Superman. I think that'd be a great time.
Yeah. You should check out that documentary. It's a really good one.
Okay, The Death of Superman Lives. What happened? I'm gonna check that out.
Excellent.
Hell yeah. So we can. Even though this was our Nic Cage episode, I feel like I'm not done investigating. Like maybe I need to do. We need to do our 6 through 10 at a later date.
I'm in. I got it ready.
Hell yeah. You've been doing you've made some scores at some garage sales recently.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I have. I went and hit a lot of garage sales in the last week. We had our citywide garage sale around here.
Now's that time. It's that time of year.
It's great. Had the first flea market of the year. Went to that because I just love checking junk out. And I got to I found a lot of really cool things. I've been buying a lot of VHS tapes again recently because, as you can see over my shoulder, I love movies. Movies are pretty cool. And I've been rebuying movies that I sold for pennies on the dollar years ago. And now I'm like, I like VHS again.
Yep.
Specifically, 80s, early 90s stuff. And so I found a ton of cool VHS tapes. Some movies that I had only heard about and never actually seen, which is kind of interesting. A Anthony Michael Hall movie called A Gnome Named Norm, which is bonkers looking. Let's see here. Yeah, right over my shoulder. A Gnome Named Norm. Look at this thing.
It's so funny. Like I could kind of think of something when you said that, like it sounded vaguely familiar, but then you show me that and it brings me back to like movie gallery in the early 90s.
Yeah, I mean, this thing looks like something out of Dark Crystal.
Absolutely.
And they're buddy cops. And so And then my problem with getting all these VHS tapes as I have recently is I don't have a VCR. I've been trying to acquire one, but they're really expensive these days on the
Okay,
secondary market.
can you tell me what's going on with that? Like, why? I mean, seriously,
Because nerds like
$80,
yeah,
$100, $150 for a VCR right
for
now.
used second without a remote.
And yeah, exactly. And it's not like it's not like it's a brand new one. Like you're
Right.
getting somebody's from the
I've been
mid
on Facebook
90s.
Marketplace for 6 months trying to find them, and they're really difficult. Because there's nerds like me that are probably doing just this because it's retro and
Well, what is the draw? Is it just because that it's old and it's out of it's
for me,
obsolete in a way, or is there a reason people want the tapes? Is there some things that didn't transfer over?
yes. So that for me, that's a big part of it is Unknown Named Norm and various other movies that I picked up are never made the jump. Movies get lost and they never made the jump to DVD for whatever reason. And so that's cool. I also there's just something about it. There's that nostalgia around it, of getting these tapes, and some of them it's different artwork on the VHS cases as opposed to when they came on DVD. I like just having that's. It started with me like grabbing some to display, and then now I just have the sickness is set in. But I bought a VCR while I was out garage sailing.
Really, you found one?
Found one in great condition, and it was actually I knew the people. It was friends of our family that had the garage sale that I stopped at.
So you only had to pay like $50.
No. It was marked for 20 and I got it for less than that.
Oh,
and they said it works. It's got the remote and I trust them. I know that it's good. They will, so I'm like, cool. I got myself a VCR. So a lot of tapes, got a VCR to play it in.
Just waiting for that thing to get eaten.
Yeah, I know, right?
First tape, you never know.
I picked up Richard Simmons Sweating to the Oldies. It's still in the plastic. It's still in the plastic. Somebody didn't get to sweat to the oldies. They're missing out.
Oh my god, that's just worth so much money. I'm sure. You're even wearing a VCR shirt.
I got my my Blockbuster. I have already gotten to the point where I'm buying movies that I already had because I picked up Die Hard 1 and 2 and came home and I was like, I already have Die Hard 1 and 2 on VHS. We're already to that point, you idiot.
So quick.
I know. When hit a bunch of stuff, picked up a old original Dukes of Hazzard board game with all the stuff in it. That was kind of fun to see.
That's awesome.
Picked that thing up for $0.25.
And that's from like 82 or like when is that?
Yeah, it's vintage. Yeah, it's early 80s from when I was a kid. And then one of my favorite things I picked up was there's an artist who lives around the corner from us who years ago, 2016, I believe it was. I stopped. He had a garage sale, and he does screen printing out of his house, and he does a lot of collages that he turns into a lot of pop culture collages and stuff. And years ago, I'd stopped and picked up this print that he had made of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It was on this piece of wood. It was really cool how he did it. Bought it from him. Awesome. Stopped at this garage sale last week. And it's the same guy. And he's telling me, he's like, yeah, I do these things. I go, yeah, no, I bought one from you. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. He goes, that was one of the first things I ever did.
7 years ago.
And I'm like, it hangs on my 3-season porch. And he's like, that's awesome. So I'm like, well, I got to pick up some other stuff. And so I did. So I don't know if you'll be able to see this. I don't have the print in front of me, but I picked up this James Brown
print. Love James Brown.
Hand numbered. He put together.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool.
Really cool. I was pretty happy to get that. Yeah, I love some James Brown. So
yeah.
He was selling a bunch of old 90s wrestling figures mint in
that's from the same garage sale, same person.
Yeah, okay, he had a ton of them.
This is crazy to me because I mean it's from the era that I would have been very into wrestling and even collecting action figures.
Yeah.
The one you have, the Chris Benoit is just insane to me.
Yeah, I picked up I was having a hard time deciding because he had so many from that 1996. Started the Attitude Era.
Yeah, so like Jack's Pacific is that era of WWF.
I picked up an American Badass Undertaker. Okay. Like, oh, that's kind of cool. I picked up a Rocky Maivia.
Wow.
And then I saw the Chris Benoit. I was like, oh God, I have to get that because it's just these don't exist.
That one to me really stood out when you put up a picture of all the things that you scored at the garage sale.
Yeah.
my eyes immediately went to that Chris Benoit figure because, well, just the tragedy in the story and everything, and him being really eliminated from the history of wrestling in a lot of ways, and it's one of the biggest tragedies the sport had ever seen. I mean, murdered his family and then himself over a 3-day weekend, and basically CTE just took over, and years of concussions and headshots just ruined this man. And so we've just, you don't see things like that from his era of wrestling, the late 90s into the mid 2000s. So seeing a Chris Benoit figure was crazy to me.
Mint
and
in the
package. Can I ask how much that one was?
$3.
God, unbelievable.
Yeah, pretty great. Garage sales are good.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of fun, good to sit and chat with folks for a while. I'm that guy that'll just hang around your garage sale and chat with you and dig through your stuff. And
of course.
I love it. I took basically 2 days of just hitting garage sales around the city. Met one guy who had a lot of baseball stuff, sat and talked to him, bought a Bert Blyleven autographed baseball.
That was the other one, because I know you would have been a Twins fan when
87 Twins, the world champion Twins. Blyleven was on the staff. Yeah,
he's a Hall of Famer, I believe. He was
just
the
recently
ace of those late 80s teams, and I always liked him. And when he would do interviews on Brewers TV or other stuff that I see him, did he used to do TV or radio for the Twins? And maybe that's why I know a little. Maybe he was involved.
I think he did for the Twins. I think he was national for quite a while, like Sutcliffe was. Like he was a national guy for a while, and also had one of my favorite Chris Berman nicknames, right? Bert Be Home Blyleven.
Oh,
that's great.
That is great. Oh my god!
Of all those tortured nicknames that he would put out there, Be Home Blyleven is a good one.
That is a really good one. Yeah, I always like Bert Blyleven. That's awesome.
Yeah,
hell stuff. We had the NFL draft recently.
Yeah.
Are you so you and I root for different teams? You're a Browns fan. I'm a Packer fan.
Yeah.
Are you someone who can sit through even the late rounds of the draft? Are you able to just go through even rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7 and watch draft picks? And do you get that into it? Is it in why?
I like having it on in the background. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
I used to be the obsessive watch all 7 rounds.
Yeah.
I'm much less so now. I like just having it on in the background, seeing where guys are going. And like this year, and probably for the next couple of years, my team doesn't have high draft picks. We don't have first round picks because we traded them for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
So it's a little tougher to watch. Like I had a friend of mine who went down to Kansas City for the draft. He's a Lions fan, has family in Kansas City, place to stay. Lions have a couple of early picks. He's excited. He's like, "Hey, would you want to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, we don't have a pick in the first round. That'd be horribly boring for me." Same thing next year. It's in Detroit. Like, yeah, still, we don't have a pick next year. It would be horribly boring. But I enjoy it. I enjoy watching it and seeing where it goes and reading everything and listening to podcasts, kind of hashing it up afterwards. I'm kind of obsessed with it at times.
NFL does such a great job marketing it because, I mean, in the middle of the spring, you're not really thinking about football, but when this comes out, like it is the major talk of sports, even over NBA playoffs and NHL.
As baseball season is starting and NHL and NBA are in the start of their playoffs, we get football dominating in the conversation again. It's crazy.
Yeah. And it's funny, it's around this time that I start picking up Madden again and playing again just because I'm just jonesing for it. So Kurt Benkert, kind of a career backup quarterback, spent some time with the Packers, the Niners last season, and has bounced around a little bit, even in the XFL this year. He's like, if Madden was smart, they would release it right after the draft every year. And I'm like, yeah, that's when I pick it up again anyway. That's when I start thinking about football. But then now we have to wait 4 months for any games.
So and it's, and I think that was back before the days of, being able to update rosters. So they wanted to wait until rosters are set. Yeah. And then we'll put the game out. But now rosters are constantly updating on the game.
Every week it's different. The ratings change as you go.
But I think they just have their release schedule set. We come out here. Yeah. This is when we do it. And you could put it out right now and then just auto update with all the rookies and everything.
Exactly. Like man, I'm jonesing for it. I can't get enough. I fired it up. I wanted to start a new franchise with awesome. Where I traded Aaron Rodgers to the Jets, get my first round picks and play it out with Jordan Love. And I'm on my way.
Go 6-12 or 6-11,
Hey,
and
hey, no Packers slander here. It's a rough off season as it is.
oh man, yeah.
So all right, I've been. Do you get into serial killer documentaries or?
I do.
Okay,
Yes.
so you watch the documentaries? Do you watch the? I mean, you watch the movies just if they come out.
Everything. Read the books. I've been.
Okay.
Yeah, I was one of those weirdos back in like early high school that got obsessed with serial killer books, and probably was like one of those that they watched. Like, he knows way too much about the Night
Yeah.
Stalker.
Yeah.
I think it started. I read a book called The Last Victim when I was maybe a freshman or maybe in middle school, even, about this kid who was like a high school age kid who started reaching out to serial killers, famous serial killers, trying to pick their brains for a sociology project, and then found himself getting obsessed, and then got too close to John Wayne Gacy. But he was having correspondences with Dahmer, with Richard Ramirez, with John Wayne Gacy.
What the
He was
hell?
pen pals with them for years as a kid, and then went and met John Wayne Gacy,
Oh my
and then
God.
found that he went to go see Gacy in prison in Illinois, and he would in the letters purport himself as that he would figure out what they were looking for in a victim and portray that, trying to get them to take the bait on him to be a pen pal and such. So when he met Gacy, it had been years of being a pen pal with him. And I'm this troubled kid, and my dad doesn't listen to me, and blah, blah, blah. So he goes to meet Gacy, and Gacy sees he might be able to get one more victim in him. And it gets scary because he gets put in a room with Gacy to talk and realizes that he's got a lot of sway in there, and the guards walk away and leave him alone with John Wayne Gacy. And things get a little scary. And this is
Holy
all
cow.
true. And this
Yeah.
kid went on to be an FBI profiler as an adult. It's
Oh my
really
God.
interesting. Yeah, and that kind of really set the hook on me of the inner workings of these guys.
Oh my God.
Real
Yeah,
sickos.
that's wild.
Yeah. There's a lot of great, man, we get so many great documentaries, and I see there's a new one that's coming out this week, right? The same people who did the Dahmer one are doing a different one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's going to be under the same. I'm going to look it up while you're talking. Hi.
Okay. Yeah, because I recently finished the Dahmer one. I didn't watch it as it came out, and I knew that I would get to it at some point, and recently had the time to sit down with my girlfriend and watch the Dahmer Netflix series, and just finished it recently. And man, it really was an incredible story. And anytime something like this comes out, you hear a lot of like, oh, they're kind of glorifying it and all these things. And I think more than anything, it sort of humanized the victims that we don't really hear about a lot. And I think it gave them more of their story. So man, it was crazy. Just knowing so much of the story, obviously it being mostly in Wisconsin, a little bit in Ohio, and then back to Wisconsin. But
yeah,
knowing a lot of the story and then seeing it in that way and so graphic, and especially how it really starts like off in fifth gear, the Netflix series with Evan Peters. And I thought he did an incredible job. And I didn't really, I'd seen other documentaries, but didn't watch the Netflix one until after finishing the Netflix series with Peters, and just seeing like they made the apartment look exactly how his apartment actually was.
Yeah. Oh, let me tell you, there's the new one that is coming out is the Menendez brothers
there you go.
series. That's what it was. Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry.
So then you said that's this week.
I believe so. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Wow.
I actually had, my journalism teacher in high school had an incredible, harrowing story of living in the building that Dahmer lived in.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Like wasn't on the same floor, but I remember her telling us, because this was when Dahmer got arrested. I'm in high school.
Yep.
And I remember our journalism teacher telling us, because we would sit and watch true crime stuff, all this stuff, because journalism class, and we would watch proceedings. I remember watching the Waco stuff happen in journalism class.
Wow.
Like, we're going to sit and watch this. And when the Dahmer stuff went down, she told us when I lived in Milwaukee, in college, I believe she was going to college. She's like, I lived in that building. And she said, as a girl in Chicago, I live 2 blocks down from John Wayne Gacy.
Oh
Like,
my,
how are
what
you
the
here?
hell?
How are
Yeah,
you?
right.
Like 2 of the most notorious serial
She's
killers.
lucky to be a female, really, in those
Actually, you're
both those
right.
instances, right?
Yeah. She's like, yeah, close proximity. Saw these guys, probably passed them,
Yeah.
multiple times and somehow made it. And so that was like, wow, that's insane. Yeah, pretty crazy stuff.
That is, and that's why I wanted to ask. And this isn't something you and I discussed off
Mhm.
the show or anything, but a lot of people have those stories, or so that's why I was interested to know, and especially just with your time frame, like
Mhm.
how that all would have worked out. But you meet people or know people who are like cousins, or see the last
Sure.
name pop up in other ways, and just I don't know, very interesting. And it just wanted to know if that was something that you like are fascinated. I'm definitely fascinated by it.
Yeah.
And I know the stories are so awful, but it's also hard not to like look into these things and what happened, and
I,
watch the
I
documentaries or
I
the
think a lot of
series.
people were secretly like that, and now between the serial killers and the cult documentaries over the
Yep.
last 10 years, a lot of cult
Sure.
leaders
Oh my god.
documentaries and series have become huge things, right? Like I
Yep.
was a big God, that's not how I want to phrase it. I was I was gonna say I was a big fan of Charles Manson. It's not,
Yeah.
but I mean, I was very intrigued by Charles Manson and how cult leaders work,
Yeah.
right? How that mindset works. And so I did a lot of reading about that as well. And so getting a lot of that recently, and Jim Jones and just all these cult leaders, like how do they get this to work? The cult of personality that they create, and same with serial killers, and how does that inner working work? And I think a lot of people have had that interest, and it shows. Otherwise, these wouldn't be so successful, and they wouldn't keep making them if people weren't watching them, because they're really interesting, and it's part of society that you don't run into those people very often. If you
Yeah.
do, you probably don't know about it or live to tell about it.
And I also think that sort of the success of the Dahmer series also will lead into other ones as well,
Mhm.
just because we've gotten other Dahmer movies before,
Yeah, the
and
Jeremy
others.
Renner one. Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of those didn't really do very well, or weren't well received, or
Well, we had
um,
a Ted Bundy one a couple like maybe 4 years ago as well. That was
sure, Zac
Zac
Efron.
Efron. Yeah,
Yep,
yeah, that was
yep.
pretty good, I thought,
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's kind of what Netflix is doing, where you're getting a series, or a documentary
because they
series
released the
about it,
Ted Bundy tapes
because
at
they
the
do the
same time.
tapes. Yep, they'll do the tapes, and then
Yeah,
you'll get the biopic or the series.
yeah,
And the same thing with Dahmer. We
I
got
like
the
that.
Dahmer tapes, and we got the full series with Evan Peters.
Yeah,
And I think there's the
John Wayne
John
Gacy.
Wayne
Yep,
Gacy tapes, but
yep,
not necessarily the biopic yet.
right.
But I think you're right, and also the cult, like some of the cult documentaries, Wild Wild Country on Netflix in
Yeah,
Oregon. Oh my god,
yeah,
that was before I moved to Oregon, and I was just like, man, outside of this chaos, like this place is so beautiful.
yeah.
And just like I don't know, there's it seems like a number of them end up in Oregon at some point, as the cults do. And over the last year, we've had two Waco biopics or series,
This is the anniversary.
and then also the a documentary as well in
Yeah,
there.
yeah, and I was interested. When I was in high school, I had a girlfriend who her mom left to join a cult, and we would talk about it a lot. And it was really interesting. She moved from here to San Francisco to join the Reverend Moon's cult, and just getting the inner workings. That's the first and only time I've really had close personal
Sure.
relationship with anyone who had a true story about that and how it affected their life. And she was a fairly young girl. She was, I believe, in grade school when her mom left her and her daughters and her husband and joined a cult. And like, whoa, tell me about this.
Yeah.
It was wild. Yeah,
That is, yeah,
really
it's
wild.
unbelievable stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
But very fascinating,
for
very
sure.
fascinating. And I think that's why just we have a hard time understanding how someone could bring themselves to do these things, or to
I could see
leave
you
life
being
and
a
go to
cult
cult.
leader.
Yeah,
I
oh,
think you could
thanks.
be an
That
effective,
that
really
is the
effective cult leader.
nicest thing that
It's high
anyone has
praise.
said to me. Yeah, I could be a cult leader. I'm gonna take that, and I'm gonna try and focus my efforts on
Good,
starting a cult.
good.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. So then by the next episode, I'm hoping maybe I have 3 followers. I'm not sure.
Hey, whatever
Whatever it takes.
Yeah, you have to give me your wives too.
Yeah. Step 1.
Yeah,
Step 1.
absolutely.
I love how, yeah, God.
That always follows suit.
Yeah.
It's amazing how that works.
It's always a part of it.
Yep.
Oh, well, I had a lot of fun, man. This was great.
I
Talking
did
about
as
Nic
well.
Cage. Hell yeah. Maybe I need to do some garage sailing myself and get out into the world and get some new scores. Get a VHS player. We used to call them VCRs.
Yeah, and I'm proud of you for going to a movie theater. Nice job.
How about, you know what? Yeah, this, and what an experience it was. Now I'm thinking I might go more often, but I doubt that I'll have the results of what I got.
Yeah.
last Tuesday. Holy
Yeah.
cow! But people should go check out Beau is Afraid.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just, you just haven't seen anything like it, and if you love movies, then I think this is one that you do want to check out. As weird or hard as it might be at times, I think it's just an experience that people should have.
I would say hurry if you're going to see it. Otherwise, I mean, because we just had Guardians of the Galaxy come out, and then next week the new Fast movie comes out. Those gobble up all the screens around you,
right?
But if not, keep it in your mind for when it comes out streaming, and give it a shot, man. Roll the dice. It's great.
Anything? Any other good things you want people, you think that they should check out, or anything that's coming up streaming soon, or need to hit the theaters, or what are you reviewing next week for real reviews?
Oh, it's a rough week. It's a rough week next week's show because it's the week after Guardians comes out, right?
Yeah.
So just reviewed Guardians and Sisu and some other films. The new Broken Lizard movie, Quasi. I just reviewed that. That was terrible. It was awful.
What an awful idea. I feel bad. Like, who thought that was a good idea?
Yeah, not good. And so, nobody put anything out to go against Guardians in its second week. So next week I'll be reviewing Book Club 2. That's the movie with a bunch of old broads led by Jane Fonda. The first one was they formed a book club to read 50 Shades of Grey together and get all horned up, bunch of 70-year-old ladies. Now they're going to Italy to hook up with Don Johnson and some other big studs. That's the big movie of the week. The other movie I'll be talking about next week is Fool's Paradise, the new movie written, directed, and starring Charlie Day, which I'm kind of excited for because I like him a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
And then over on Netflix, I'm talking about Mother, which is the Mother. Jennifer Lopez is an assassin.
Yep.
Oh boy.
You know what? I will say I love her so much that I will probably just check it out just because she's always been just.
It's funny that
I was a young boy.
It's funny that she has a movie on Netflix. It's kind of like the big streaming movie of the week. And then Ben Affleck has a movie that's coming into certain theaters called Hypnotic, which I'm going to travel to go see. And it's just kind of funny that they have movies coming out against each other.
Yeah. How far are you traveling for this?
Just across town, over to Johnson Creek.
Okay.
So,
all right. That's
half hour.
That's still a trek for a movie.
Yeah.
All right.
It's just how it works sometimes.
That's how it works sometimes. God, your dedication, man.
I like movies. Movies are fun.
Hell yeah. Even on weeks like this.
Yeah, especially.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps things up. Thanks for hanging out, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Always fun.
Hell yeah.
Thank you for not asking about the Boston Celtics and the heart attack I nearly had.
I knew that was going to end up okay. I'm like, Jason Tatum, he's going to have a great fourth quarter, and it happened. Three big threes to put him over.
Yeah. I'm lucky to have survived that game.
Still licking my wounds. Do you have opinions about the Bucks head coach and whether it was right to fire him, or just wondering what your opinions are?
Time for a change of culture. I think Nick Nurse would be a great hire.
Yeah. And are you saying this as a Celtics fan wanting harm for the Bucks, or
no, not at all?
You actually
I like
believe that is good for?
I think Nick Nurse is a great coach. He's gotten the best out of mediocre talent at times, and when he's got great talent, he's won a title.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, maybe we discuss that a little bit more in the future, or we get you on a Bucks podcast.
All right, fair enough.
All right. For Jamison, Rabbitt, I am Anthony Denu. Thanks for checking out the show. Please like, subscribe, rate, review, all that jazz. Really helps us out, and we will catch you next time. Thanks for joining.